Last things first, you already win. You already him, you don't gotta pretend. Fuck them, you already king. You stay real, you confident in your skin. It's all now, sit in the power that you already in. This the story of a master from a true Bedouin, far away from home than few ever been. First round pick, league of the smooth gentleman. The game rigged like 50 said it's a cruel sentiment. I'm from the era when lyrics and bars is over everything. 5-star veteran. You couldn't walk in my fucking shoes or carry them. Excuse my borderline is very thin. Been married to the game like ever since maybe 2010. I realized most of y'all not serious. Point blank period. I flex and twist necks like cherry stems. Thought he was buried, but there he is, a new narrative. I keep winning.
They not used to what you bringing, kid.
I keep winning.
They don't even know what they looking at.
I keep winning.
One lane and stay in that
I
shit.
keep winning.
You came up on that hood shit.
I keep winning. I keep winning.
Be ready for your turn.
Which episode number is this? I don't even know. But it doesn't matter. We're having we have a great guest today. I'm really excited to do this, and I will introduce them very quickly and get right into it actually. So they are someone we just met recently through a mutual friend, and they're just awesome, cool people. So I'm excited to have this conversation and then turn the camera on and let the microphone roll. And here they are. Give it up for my guest, Carmen Player.
What's going on? Peace, good people. I'm so blessed and fortunate, and I'm just grateful to be in this space with you, Billy. And we get to like share it with other friends, which is cool too.
Absolutely, that's awesome. Actually, I referred to you as Carmen Player, but you're also the Reverend Carmen Player.
Yes, the good right Reverend Carmen D. Player.
Damn
That's me
right.
for sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah, right on.
I love, like, tell me about that. Tell me about Reverend Carmen Player. Tell me about hype.
Absolutely. So my name is Carmen D. Player, Reverend Carmen D. Player. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. And what you're referring to is the cosmic hype, and hype stands for have your perspective elevated. And so this is my soul commission, I guess, if you could capture it in one title. But if I were to break it down and give it as an offering, my soul commission is that I'm a revolutionary of compassion and love, and I make a positive disturbance in the places I've been given. And that looks like me affirming God when I meet them. I meet God all the time. And sometimes folks don't even recognize that they are divine, and they act like it too. Because if you don't know you righteous, you don't act right. That's what I realized. Right. And so if given the space and opportunity, I get to love on people and be affirming and be compassionate. And that doesn't necessarily mean being soft. It doesn't necessarily mean being passive, but it means standing straight in a crooked room, as one of my good sisters would say, and being the one who's going to speak truth to the situation, and speak truth right into the situation that's a mess, right? That's from a real tangible standpoint, but from the good, right, Rev, if you will, aspect is that I'm a metaphysicist, and we all are. And by this, if I were to break it all the way down, you can also check this out in further detail on the Cosmic Hype podcast on all of your streaming platforms.
All your platforms, yeah.
All of them.
Yes.
The Cosmic Hype, and that's Cosmic with a K, KOSMIC, Hype, HYPE, the Cosmic Hype. Cosmic Hype podcast. So it's rooted in metaphysics. So if you were to take in this, I have to attribute this to my own mentor and friend and teacher, good Reverend Dr. Raymond Anderson. He uses the analogy of a chocolate cake. If you were to take the chocolate cake and cut a slice, you take this slice over here. You know what you call this slice? Chocolate cake. It's chocolate cake. It didn't become pie. It didn't become yogurt. It didn't become a watermelon free Palestine. It didn't become anything else but a chocolate cake. So here's the thing about it. Everything that the chocolate cake is, so is that slice. It didn't change in any way. So if we were to go back into our spiritual DNA, if you will, everything that the universe is that could ever be, we are poured out into these pieces of, right? And so in my own personal walk and understanding that is that if we are the divine essence of the universe, of everything. We spark everything. And the thing about it is that we are creating constantly, and we don't even realize that we are creating and making a change and a difference.
Yeah.
You know this when somebody walks in and they acting funky as all get out,
Mm-hmm.
just funky. They can change the mood or the what reality of that situation
Absolutely do.
immediately by walking in,
Yeah.
right? In the same way, if you have somebody who's coming with like this effervescent excitement, love, compassion, so on and so forth, they can change a room and a place. And
Absolutely.
that's just in the atmosphere and the energy. Imagine if that's applied into action and words. You
Yes.
make even more sustainable change, right? So if that's the case, that you're made of everything that is divine, all the spark of the universe, all that is, you're the essence, you're all the ingredients. You're the cocoa powder, the butter, the oat milk. You are all of that. You are the same thing, not the entire thing, but you are the same thing.
Right.
Let's keep it funky.
Mm-hmm.
If you got that power and you have impersonal law, like cause and effect, a lot of people sometimes will say, "Oh, God's testing me," or is it cause and effect? Did you do something? There's a repercussion. You know, cause and effect is a thing. Frequency, attraction, and repulsion. Like these are things that don't care who's using it. It's
Yeah.
just law. Electricity will cook a chicken or kill a man. Doesn't care. It just is electricity. The
Yeah.
law is just applicable, and anybody can use it. And I can give you examples of how we've used it in light and not so light times. But that being said, you're divine, you got this impersonal law. Hmm. And what if you believe what you say?
Right.
What
Right.
if you actually see it, believe it, and you start acting like it's already there, so I'm already walking in it? You start to create a new reality, right? So that's the spiritual element of the metaphysics, right? In real life, in application, getting down to like how this lives, my walk personally is an invitation and offerings that spirit's given to me to heal the things that I've believed about myself. Because you remember that critical part was what you believe. There are things that happened in my childhood that I believed and co-signed. There are things that were given to us through trauma of generations, through living on this turtle island in the way of colonization under white supremacy delusional beliefs of under all the isms. All these things start to make you believe a certain thing about you or our reality or society or our world.
Yeah.
And if that's been given to us and we've been perpetuating it, our faith becomes substance. You've had a goal, if you've accomplished anything, if you ever gotten a degree, if you gotten a work, if you got a bill paid, you saw it, whether you consciously said it or not, you saw yourself completing it
Stepped
and it
into it.
became a reality,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And so if that is the case, that I believed that I wasn't good enough or that I wasn't holy enough or that I was I, queer binary in the South and black, I can't go right. AFAB, I can't be right, right? And if I believe that, then I'm going to manifest that in my actions somehow or another. Sometimes people are overachievers and they overcompensate and then they burn out.
Exactly.
Sometimes people self-medicate in order to assuage the pain and the traumas that have happened, but your beliefs will come out in your actions.
I,
Period.
I think that's absolutely right. I would love to, over the course of the next
Hmm.
hour, get into like your
Yeah.
particular path. I would love to
Hmm.
hear more about that and
Mm.
share some of mine. But what I love
Hmm.
about what you're saying, and the thing
Please.
that's so challenging and beautiful about it is you're talking about something,
Mm.
something bordering magic. You know, it's
Hmm.
to me something
Hmm.
that doesn't have enough language. It's a space that the sciences have sort of pushed off, and maybe the religious groupings have attempted are attempting it in their different ways, um, in their different ways, and sort of, but the fact that there's not language. So when we talk about energy and you talk about all these things, you're pointing to something. And if we were talking, if I listened to, I understand and followed, what you said, but if it was 10 years ago when I considered myself an atheist and I wasn't really listening in the sense that I wasn't attempting to understand the words that you're using. When you say something like energy, I would immediately box that as like, oh boy, here's some woo woo something, and I wouldn't be open to understand that this is a truth. This isn't like we're trying to articulate a truth about how it is the words, the narratives, the conceptions, the stories we hold are creating reality. It's just something that we don't feel, we don't talk about, we haven't mapped it And like we're saying, there's not enough language around it, and so we just exist. And then there's this conversation, which as I said, it borders on the magical, which I'm so glad that I'm able to actually receive it properly and understand it, you know. But I'm sure you
Absolutely.
speak to people where sometimes is there a language barrier sometimes where people aren't with you?
Yes, I think so. Absolutely. And I bless spirit angels and guides of unconditional love, light, and protection for my walk because it allowed me to be an educator of children from ages third grade, which is like 9 till high school. I've worked with high school kids, so you have to be able to navigate a lot of different discourse in order to reach people. Because if you can't reach people, you can't move people. You can't
Yeah,
move people, you don't get action, right? So there, I have to figure out, how do you need me to speak to you, so I listen to you
right.
first before I start to promulgate. I need to listen to how, and I'm not saying put on a black sin if that's not what you do, but what are the analogies, what are the metaphors, what are the concrete ways that they're communicating among the people are communicating among themselves and with you already, before you start to try to tap into, get into your mind and spirit. Quite honestly, with children, they understand your language of your action and your energy and your behavior before they even listen to your words, right? So what I find that in when I'm in these spaces and I'm having these conversations, I believe and I trust that someone would have already felt me or seen me move and navigate in the space. Like, I'm at least intrigued and want to know. The mere fact that there's wonder means that there's an opening and a possibility for us to connect. Because I
Yes.
believe I'm seeing you. And when we're in space, I know that I'm here to affirm God, even if you don't recognize that you are. And I ain't got to say, hey, God, but I can say, how you doing? What's your name? Because your name is important. You speaking your name to me and me knowing who you are is important because you are worthy. I don't need to say all that, but I'm going to pause and say, what's your name? How are you today? Oh, I can dig that for real. Are people doing you all right? Did you take a break? I'll ask people, did you drink some water?
Yeah.
Like, small pauses says that you are worthy. In a moment when we talk about time and money, money and time, and life is short and all this other stuff, the mere fact that you pause to connect with somebody, that is a divine
It's
connection. That's being
huge.
compassionate and love, right?
Yeah.
And I found that that has allowed me to have conversations with people that would initially be very hostile,
Yeah.
because I showed up in the space and allowed the presence and what you want to express to people to reach them before your words do.
Exactly.
That your actions reach them before the words do. And I also believe that, I mean, I refer to the Bible often because it's one of the canon texts of my spiritual growing ups. And I also think it's a great book of stories. So is, Aesop's fables and things like that. I can get bars and God is in there too, right? You know
Yeah.
that, Billy. But and one of the mini bars, right, is that, let who can hear it, right? Not everybody's here to hear it. Maybe they're not there, right? I
Yeah.
can't force you to be open to listen. It's whether you want to or not.
It really
It's
is.
everything that
It's
I offer, at least, is an invitation and offering. I ain't telling you how to live life. I'm saying this is what I've experienced. This is what I've experimented with.
yeah.
Because I hated going to church and I can't apply it on Monday.
Yeah.
If I'm sharing something, it's because I'm either dealing
Yeah.
with it or I've done it, or it's like, no, like real life. Just think about that with the good common sense that God gave you and
Yeah.
ask questions. You know what I mean?
How powerful is it to, because you talk about perspective, hype, the P in
Hmm.
hype is perspective. And I think that that's key.
Absolutely.
How powerful is it to, I want you to do two things, please. Define
Hmm.
God, the word that you've said,
Hmm.
we've both used a few times.
Hmm.
And then also,
Hmm.
how powerful is it to understand that if you believe it, it's true. If you believe it, it's true to you. So, like, I grew up in a quad, like some Christian with a Christian background, but also very scientific oriented. If you believe the story that we are descendant from apes, let's say, and that's it, we're simply an evolutionary process here for a blip on a rock, then that will be your truth, and you carry yourself and with that truth. If you believe that you have some other priorities or higher things that need to that you need to take into account, um then you'll do that. We don't, this goes back to the thing, like the story that we're told, and the thing about it is so many stories can be true, like you said with the cake, the complexity of what that chocolate cake is, the complexity of who you are. You can be, yes, a product of evolutionary processes, and also a son of God, or God embodied. I'll stop there.
The two questions that I heard is how do I define God or spirit? And then the second one, what was it?
The second one has to do with the power of
Oh,
believing
believing.
further
Got it.
again.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep, yep, yep. Absolutely.
it's
So
so.
for
Go ahead.
yeah, for me, like I would use God and spirit interchangeably, and it depends on like whatever comes up. I think particularly when I'm coming from a place of being intentionally compassionate and love, whatever comes up, I believe is appropriate for whoever needs to hear it. For me, it's interchangeable, God, spirit, universe. But oftentimes you'll hear me say the whole phrase of spirit, angels, ancestors, and guides of unconditional love, light, and protection. Because it's not just spirit. It's like there's so many beings that I don't even know by name, and those who know me specifically by name that are on my behalf, working with me and for me. Right. That's part of the reason why. And I'll like pause and then come back and answer number two
Yeah,
is the reason why I utilize the pronouns they, them, theirs is because even when you say they, them, theirs, you're identifying and you are when you use they, them, and theirs for me, it's not just a gender expression and being the embodiment of the masculine, the feminine, divine, and everything in between, but it's also the whole holy host that I roll with. Right. So it's also a remembrance for me and a reminder for me every time you say my name or you refer to me, you refer to all of us.
mm,
So it's like
mm,
it's an affirmation within your own tongue that you don't even recognize, but I know. So it's kind of like cueing me of like you don't walk in this alone. So that's
mm,
spirit is like all encompassing for me.
mm,
Um, and sometimes I am apprehensive about using the word God because people use the name of God in vain. And it's not just saying like, God damn it, but like doing shit in God's name that's blasphemous. You know what I mean? That's just the antithesis of it. And I recognize that that is a triggering name in a lot of ways. Just like, I would say there are a lot of historical and contemporary figures who have triggering names as well that we don't like using in a lot of spaces. And I recognize that. And I also believe it's one of those um, names that I refuse to allow someone else's experience and my experience of God, of spirit, of the divine, in the tongue that I recognize and I use and we connect with to be taken away from me. And if it comes up in space, then it comes up in space, and I will trust that what needs to land as invitations and offerings will be received where it needs to. And if it's not, I always say, leave it in the compassion and love that was given to you.
yeah,
Let it serve you or leave it. I'm not going to fight you on nothing. You ain't got to
yeah.
believe anything I say. I don't.
Well, again, yeah, of course. That's part of the thing, right? Part of it is this
Hmm.
with the perspective, and I think the as we go further in our different walks, we
Hmm.
learn to accept, and that
Hmm.
to me is part of it. This acceptance that there is a language barrier, that there are things that I'm saying that other people aren't receiving, or
Hmm.
they're receiving entirely differently than how I mean, and that they're not willing to receive it
Hmm.
much differently. And I need to come to peace with that. And I have to simply project my
Hmm.
best articulation of what is. Um,
Absolutely. And the thing, I bless education in my walk there is because I recognize sometimes I'm only supposed to plant the seed. Sometimes I'm the one that's pruning. Sometimes I'm the one who's watering. Sometimes I'm the one who's plucking. Sometimes, you know what I mean? And so, like, your interaction with those individuals or beings that you might have initially felt like, oh man, this didn't do anything, or they're not hearing me, or they're not understanding something on a place and a level is. I have to trust and believe that because I don't believe anything can come from the divine and come back fruitless.
yeah,
You might not see it. As a
exactly.
teacher, I could teach how many hundreds of children and only a handful will I actually see their full life just
Yeah,
because we're in connection or, different things happen. But that's the faith of I'm going to give you the best that I can give you and trust that it's going to land where it needs to and it will fruit. And
yeah,
somebody else will nurture it, or, you'll go through different processes to nurture yourself and protect yourself and do
yeah.
those different things, right? Um,
I always come
the
back to.
second,
Sorry,
oh,
go
I'm sorry.
ahead. Second question. Did you ever
No, no, no. I was going to say the second. I thought we were going to the second question. I wasn't sure if you were pressed for time for me to answer it.
do it? Do
I'm,
it. Hit me.
it's the educator in me.
No.
Um, faith. Again, back to the book of Bars. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And that's been super powerful for me because I've been having to break it down in a lot of different ways because I'm gonna talk about that and then I'm gonna talk about how faith and fear are the exact same thing. Okay, so faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. I have to believe substance of things hoped for, of the thing that is in the future. Hope is in the present to get us to the future, right? It's also in the future. That's a feeling of vision. Hope is a feeling of vision to
Mm-hmm.
come.
Mm-hmm.
You breathe hope into it. And so I have faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. I have to have faith that even though I can't, I see it and I see it and I see it, I'm going to do these different actions that are aligned with that vision and that mission because the substance of it, the action is the
Is.
faith.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
That
not
is
the
the
pronouncement.
substance.
It's not you
It's not
saying,
the pronounce it.
yeah.
Faith without works is dead. So the faith is the substance of the things hoped for. I believe that we can have a society where we are taking care of each other, where we're living in compassion, love, where we can reach for each other. I believe that so much that it's in my action.
Right. Right.
That's the substance, right? And the evidence of things not seen. There are prayers and prayers and meditations and affirmations and work and things that we don't even see also on the spiritual realm that we then see evident in the material, right? I feel like for me, that's also my faith because I'm a powerful being, whatever I believe that is, and if I am divine and I'm using law, cause and effect, if I'm doing this thing and I'm putting this good out, it has to come to fruit. If whatever it is that I believe. So if I believe it ain't gonna be shit, it ain't gonna be shit.
Yeah.
If I believe it's going to be life, it's going to give life. And I believe that spirit is your best homie, homegirl, homeboy to show you whatever it is that you believe. If you believe that you are walking, I, before I was an assistant principal, I walked and talked like one. Everybody who's ever been a great was a great Imagineer. They
Right.
saw themselves before then their body almost compelled them in places and times when their tears were trying to tell them no to be that thing.
Yeah.
When I had a classroom and there was only 30 of us, it was like I had a school of 500. I walked as a dean. I talked, I did different things above and beyond because I was already there.
Yeah.
I always like, I would check in with folks and I say, how's your spirit? How's your spirit? And when people ask me, how's your spirit? My spirit is thriving and everything else is catching up. There's something
Mm-hmm.
I realize and I know in spirit that everything else has to catch up because so many different things have to turn and pivot and lift and open and break and evolve and
Yes.
unfold in order for a vision to come to life. Sometimes
And you can't
if your
see it.
joint is you can't see when do we say that a plant is growing? When we see the leaf outside the soil or does it happen in the
Exactly.
dark that we don't see? Right?
Exactly.
It
Exactly.
it's growing now because you see it pop from the because it
Yeah.
has one leaf. It didn't have when it didn't have two leaves, it wasn't really
Exactly.
growing. But now that it has four leaves, now it's growing, right?
Yeah.
And so like the faith part is like I know I just know. For me, my brother said me to me when I was trying to transition out of education and like out of Georgia and all this other stuff. He was like, when you walk with God, your next step is always right even if it looks wild, if it's life affirming, it's for the good of all, you're doing it with honor, respect, integrity, with
Yeah.
compassion, love. How bad is the fruit going to be? Now, could it be gnarly, agitating the ground? Could it be gnarly, pulling up the weeds? Could you get some splinters and some sores?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
there's going to be a harvest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's faith. Like,
How
got
so
it or you don't.
every time every time you speak you say so many amazing things that I have to take notes because I want to come back to these things, you know. Um
Yeah, word.
I am also someone who has an aversion to using the word God, right? I
Mm-hmm.
recognize that many of us are talking about the same thing, but that we use different words. And
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that the word God is used so widely and broadly that I don't know what that person is saying when they're saying it. I don't know what they think I'm saying when they say it, you know. I know and this goes to language for me because I this is my
Mm-hmm.
preoccupation, right? Um
Mm-hmm.
I have a sense too that when you label something, it it causes a separation. The labeling of it
Mm.
itself is a separation, you know?
Come on, there's beginning and there are borders with it, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Like the
Mm-hmm.
word begins and the word ends. Is
Ends.
that not a border? That's a
Absolutely.
border. That's a box.
But we
Yeah.
don't see that's again 10 years ago this kind of
Mhm.
this kind of analysis would have escaped me completely. I don't see I didn't see those kinds of connections, but absolutely the idea by labeling something God, and then we are also taught so many things about ourselves as sinful, as lacking, and this and that, and so we externalize God. And so the word universe to me has this all encompassing thing that includes me. And so I'm attracted to that. But I, for those people who think that God, who literally believe, as I kind of had the picture up until, you know, well into adulthood, actually, the picture of a humanoid type figure
Mm-hmm. Mm,
really, and the way we talk about God, again, language,
mm,
the way we, my pastor, people in the church, people in my environment talk about God, we talk about it with humanizing elements. And I think
mm-hmm.
this is a feature of storytelling and narrative. It's not a story, a feature of what is. you know
Mm-hmm.
what is
Mm-hmm.
like beyond that. And but it can be helpful to anthropomorphize and to help, as we talk about
Mm-hmm.
different facets of him. So
Mm-hmm.
when you tell me, oh, go tell me.
When you tell me, when you tell me.
I wanted to get into language again. I wanted to get into your pronouns
Mm-hmm.
since you brought that up, but I think you should
Mm-hmm.
go. Do you have a reply to what I just said?
Oh, yes, for sure. And it's wild, right? Because I definitely hear and I understand how putting a name on something puts a beginning and an end to it, right? Because also couched in the name or in a word of things are like assumptions and understandings of everything around that historically, context,
Right.
contemporary, so on and with traumas around it too. So like it's an
Yes.
inflamed word that is endured, and a lot has happened in it. And if we were if we were to look on the global scale and put little marbles for the number of times that the name of God's been used for good versus what seems like bad, I can see
Yeah.
how maybe you don't want to use it,
It's a
right?
whole mess.
And
You wouldn't even be able to make sense of it to say that it's,
right.
yeah.
And for me, and constantly sitting with this discomfort while you can be very grateful for something and also recognize not everything about it can serve you because you it for a myriad of reasons, and that's a whole nother conversation. But again, the Bible, the most important scripture to me is God is love. There's no caveats, there's no other it's just those few words, God is love. And so that has always resonated in me. And for me, I'm very blessed and I'm so grateful, so incredibly grateful that I had an older brother who embodied what it meant to love someone unconditionally and pour into them and be just completely safe and open and nurturing and will drag your ass when you need it because you
Yeah.
can. And, just like I knew what divine love was here. So I had the experience.
That's awesome.
Right. And so once you've had like a taste of that experience, and I've had it in different ways with like in platonic and intimate partners and the sort where I am continually affirmed and God is shown in these divine ways. And then in community, how community shows up in divine ways, right? And love, I've seen it even in our raggedy imperfections that are absolutely perfect because it allows us to reach and recognize each other,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
Because I wonder if Jesus had soft hands, would the carpenters and the like everyday folk have as much respect for him if he had softer hands? By that, like the common people, right? And so like the raggedy hands that we have because of the
Mm,
life that we've lived and things like that also allows us to connect and see the divine in us,
mm.
right? um and I keep looking at so many people, particularly folks in the marginalized experiences, who continually demonstrate the divine ability of resurrection. I don't understand how you can, like, that is I've seen God. I see God constantly, right? When I see people who are willing to like put their bodies on the line for another or their resources or do, like, is that not like just
Yeah.
look? My
Yeah.
response when I see
It's
that is
love.
like in the middle of all that, that look at God, and God
Yeah.
is love for me, right? So I can
Yeah.
say look at God and look at love, and that for me is interchangeable because I see it, right?
Yeah.
And so like my walk also is, it's so hard and challenging because not even in theory, in real life, my belief is that God is all there is,
Everything.
everywhere,
Yeah.
anything, and even in the places I can't stand,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
that God is there too. And so that's also the part of like calibrate my land spirit, calibrate my ears so I can hear, my mouth so I can speak, my
Yeah.
eyes so I can see the divinity in this and what is mine to do to bring it forth so it's more evident. That
That's
what is mine to do to make it more evident? How do I amplify God? Because again, another scripture where there are two or three gathered in my name, so I'm in the midst. Like you amplify, and it's not just like God, but love is
yeah.
amplified, good is amplified, mutual aid is divine.
Yeah. Yeah. One of
That is
it,
abundance,
it
guys. Yeah.
absolutely is. And you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
like how the name and the word God has been used in all these ways, and so it's kind of it's burdened by all of these historical, human conditions, right? Political sufferings and all this stuff. But also, I find with branding as well, right? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
do I mean by that? I mean that um, these words we can attach. It's a symbol. We can attach stuff to it. It is being attached to that robs us of
Mm.
the opportunity of actually experiencing. You know,
Listen, you ready for this? You ready
hit
for
me,
this?
hit me.
You know who else has some wild ass branding?
Who that?
The word black. The word black.
Mm,
Are you going to give up the word black? I'm never going to give up black for me as an identifier of my experience and who I am, right? And
mm.
black and God has been vilified in the same doggone way in a lot of different ways. You know what I
Similar
mean?
ways, for
Like when you
sure.
were saying that, I was like, yeah, but I would never say I'm not black, no matter what.
Now, me too, right? To me, black
Mm,
is a meaningful identifier, but I also don't lean as such. I recognize that
mm,
I think that if I'm that's what to me they, they're, them,
mm,
that to me is what kind of what you're doing. And I want to get into that for a
mm,
second, right? I
mm,
find that
mm,
there's something about identity that is interesting and beautiful and dangerous. It's just like everything else,
mm,
it's this
mm,
complex thing. And my identity as a black is valuable to me, but I also see different manifestations. I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine, not a good friend, a friend of mine from high school the other day. We were talking about politics, and we were talking about where we spend our energy. Um, and I was critiquing him because when he gets into politics, it's usually to critique women and to critique, the queer community.
mm,
And I asked him to look at what's going on in the world and how he
mm,
can use his voice to talk about genocides and violence and taking rights away from people all over the place. And one of the first things he
mm,
said was, "I'm just a black man in America, dude. Da-da-da-da." And at the age of 41, to hear another 41-year-old use a word that I identify with, black, an identity that I identify with, but the context of how he was using it, what it meant to him, what he was implying about himself, and by extension about me, and by extension all the black men, it tells me like the conversations he's having around what it means. Now I'm not telling him to disidentify with black, but I am like telling him to reconsider what it all means behind it. Like we think about what words are. Like he's telling me something through that statement, and it's not
He's
just
telling you
mm,
what
mm.
he believes.
He's telling you
He's
exactly.
telling you what he believes beneath that. That again, lovingly, respectfully, that's doesn't have a whole lot to do with the word black or black culture or anything else. That's what you have believed. And here's the thing about it: if you get beat up time and 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 time again, it's really hard for you not to believe that you ain't
Yeah,
shit, right?
yeah,
I get that. And that's also part of the fight is that
it
refusing
is
to say Toby. You know what I mean? It's
exactly.
like
But that's my
that's
thing.
what it is.
and,
Yeah.
and, and
Uh-huh.
with my background with the scene, like with media stuff
Yeah.
now, okay,
Word. Mm-hmm.
I'm really tuned into like why we believe that. Why he's been
Mm-hmm.
believed that is a deep, multi fucking fangled process of a whole bunch of imagery and ideas. And so, um, labels, identity. Let's get back to
Mm-hmm.
pronouns. When you say they, them,
Mm-hmm.
to me, when people, this person also would get annoyed at these pronouns. He would think them to be useless. And I want to
Mm-hmm.
ask. You already beautifully told us why you use they, them. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's also like it blows up sometimes we need language to just blow up we need new language to blow up the prior foundations, because everything that we
Mhm.
think that we know, our entire discourse sits on these words and these assumptions. And so to me,
Mhm.
when I hear someone say they them, I don't it's awesome because I don't really know what's going on still. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
There's nothing,
Mhm.
and that's how I see a lot of these things.
Yeah, and it's a really cool experience if we could step back from a witness standpoint, is that we're also seeing very clearly the language indicators of shifts in consciousness, right? Because language is a reflection of consciousness. So the more that we're able to be even expanded, and I recognize this as far as like what we were talking about before about labels being, almost boxes and things like that. And language allows us to understand and reach for each other more and
Yes.
express ourselves more fully, right? It every time that people are able to, especially people who have not had a language or had a language taken from them, when they're able to cultivate and create their own to express themselves,
Yeah.
that's powerful.
Yeah.
And generally, the status quo is going to fight against it,
Yes, they
right?
are.
And especially if they gave them their label and said, no, you're going to use what I told you you are.
Correct. Correct.
That we can go back and say every marginalized group has had to
Correct.
deal with that,
And so
right?
that's
And
why some
so many people get prickly. It's like, I can't use nigga no more in
exactly
common space. No, I can't just say bitches no more when I'm talking about women. No,
right.
or females. I can't just say females when I'm talking about women. Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
part, that we're not doing
Interrogating.
that
Yeah.
anymore. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, like, when people, for me, are prickly about this, I try to extend as much grace as possible, because what I recognize is I'm witnessing them having their own dissonance of the invitation of, do I move with the flow and progress of evolution and invitation and inclusiveness, or do I stay solidified and stagnant in a consciousness that has been given to me?
Hmm.
And I could imagine that it is extremely painful, because it was pain. Everybody who's probably on this side of things, like not this side of things, but who have taken the latter invitation or the former invitation of like allowing and like examining and wondering, like, why do I do this, and releasing
Right.
what we've held on to, we had to also have that reckoning at some point,
It's
because we
painful.
had to say, like, this thing is poison, or this thing doesn't serve me, or I know this, my grandmama said this, or my mama said this, and
Yeah.
because there's so much that's emotionally and spiritually and mentally, so much is wrapped in the former,
Yep.
that it feels like it's excruciating to deliver oneself. In the delivery into a new life always painful? I ain't ever heard of any person delivering new life and it was like, oh no, there is no pain. It's
Right.
always painful, it's always messy, it's always like, it
What a
gets gnarly at some point, you know
yeah.
what I mean?
What a crazy thing
Mm-hmm.
that this is available to us, that we can come into the world, and they're the first version of ourselves that develops depending on wherever we are, whatever plot we're on, whatever
Mm-hmm.
family we're born into, whatever cultures and norms and
Mm-hmm.
laws and history that we inherited,
Mm-hmm.
we were stuck in. um
Mm-hmm.
and we might see privileges here, we might be disadvantages here and there, but then we have this somewhere in life. Sometimes things are the collisions of life give you the opportunity to re-examine and actually come into a consciousness that is self-defined. And again, I I don't know if most people are ever made aware of this. I think we have an opportunity to instill this awareness into younger people through love and through acceptance of them, and sharing this incredible knowledge, so that I think it ushers in new potentials. But if you only think of
Absolutely.
yourself as an evolved ape, or some sort of scientific thing, or a collection of cells, or whatever, like,
Listen,
then you won't, it robs you of like this bigger, like this whole thing.
you forfeit, I feel like you forfeit your divinity and your ability to change and shift and be the alchemist that we're all have the ability to be in a very intentional way, right? And when you're talking about young folks, I mean, why do you it's not just because of self-defense of the Black Panthers, it was because they were also teaching children, right? They were feeding them and they were teaching them and telling them who they were outside of this. That was lethal. That was lethal to what was the status quo at the time, right? There was no way it could stand.
It's crazy.
Anytime, Anytime they're willing to go after the children, they're worried about what the children know and what the children can do
Yeah.
in any situation.
Yeah. I've been really grappling with the way we perceive, the way people perceive. So for instance, again, as if the typical you told us what your pronouns were and why.
Mm-hmm.
And what
Mm-hmm.
an amazing thing that it's they, it has this plural connotation because you encompass the full universe and the ancestors. What amazing. But
Mm-hmm.
if I'm given a different story, if I see your pronouns, in fact, I have my pronouns. I have he, him on my profiles. I'll have occasionally someone come into my DMs and be like, "Oh, you got your pronouns on your profile, loser, cock." You know,
Mm-hmm.
the belief is that the whole pronoun thing is some scam, some effort to ruin children and to ruin society. And here I am, what is it? I guess, trying to publicly display that rather than this acceptance that we're talking about, this understanding of like the flow of the human condition and the fact that everything we've been taught, those things weren't truths. Those were the social norms that were the products of all kinds of violence and political exclusion and power, and that we have this greater ability through being present, like beyond your pronouns. Your pronouns are an invitation to then further begin to get a deeper sense of who you are through a discourse in the present. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I grapple with how difficult it is to get us to experience the present without these preconceptions, without the words, and that so many people are deeply invested in those words.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Absolutely. And something that I'm continually given the invitation to reflect on and practice is understanding, recognizing not everybody is my ministry.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to argue with me about my being and my existence, oh, you this, that, and the third, then I'm not, my existence has provoked you to come and try to attack me. So my existence isn't going to be the thing that delivers you. That's a different level of God, right? Now, if you're somebody that's like, I don't really understand this whole they them thing. I don't know. Like if there's like even a ounce of like wonder or like I'm willing to have a conversation, then for me, I feel like that's a small invitation that you're willing to see my humanity. You at least recognize there's humanity there that I'm willing to understand and reach for you, even if it's a little skeptical. But
Mm-hmm.
if you coming in like blazing you this, that, and the third,
Exactly.
I can't, that's not for me. That's going to have to be a very personal experience with you in spirit to like break that because for me, that's an indication of what's going on inside of you.
It's
The
completely that.
blessings and the rot come from inside. The
Mm-hmm.
blessings and the rot come from inside and it comes out. Right. So if people are spewing that kind of hatred, I can only imagine the actual torment and hell they're actually living on a daily basis, thinking that they're doing this, that, and the third, and they're powerful. If you have to inflict that kind of pain on people so you can feel something, you get a
Yeah.
dopamine hit on that. Like, what does that say about like the conditions of you? And so for me, I'm trying to get to the place where I'm like, whew, be with the Lord. Because that is rough. Like that toxic, that poison in your spirit coming out your mouth,
Yeah.
literally that shit coming out your mouth, it is rotting you from your stomach, like from your inside. Look at Paula Dean. Look at all these races. These races do not age well. That rot comes from the
It comes out.
inside out. I'm just saying.
I say that all the time. I did a whole thing on words on one of my podcasts. I try to talk about here
Hmm.
that um, whatever we're talking about. Let's say I'm having a conversation with you about Palestine, and you disagree.
Hmm.
You don't want to use the word genocide. I want to use the word genocide. You're like, oh, let's use a
Mm,
different word. We're not describing the thing out there. The thing that's happening out there is monstrous. The thing out It's not a genocide. Actually, a genocide is just a word. It's just a collection of letters. It undersells. The thing out there is something else. The words you're using are just you. It's a collection of your fears and your anxieties and your vernacular, what you have available to you. Um, Everything that we're describing is simply that. And what a crazy, beautiful place to arrive, because in adulthood to realize that the things that you thought, I would easily just take for granted, microphone, but that this gives me an opportunity. If I care about microphones, I can go deep and like understand what created this microphone and how it works. It's just
Mhm.
a deeper level of love to me, and
Mhm. Mhm.
to go in. Um,
Mhm.
and that's it. And I think to me, linguistics has a big part to this. I'm really excited about if we can talk about linguistics deeper this way, to separate what things are from the words we use, to separate that, because that's what it is. I'm not separating it. I'm just simply pointing out that um, that I think it gives us room to interrogate those words and what the words we're using, why, and leave room to get new words.
Yeah, like you we and the thing about it is that we interrogate words constantly, right? And it's the different words and how it's been used and how it's been weaponized. For example, woke.
Mm-hmm.
How has that word been used? Like it's genesis, it's evolution, and it's weaponization, right? So we do find different words that we decide we're going to interrogate as
Of
a society.
course, of course.
We have to, I think, in mass, the people have to interrogate the words out loud with action with it. And for us, it's protesting, it's boycotting, it's divesting, it's doing the things that support the words that we're saying. It's like, no, this is what this is. This is
Right.
agreed upon. And I recognize it's like this is monstrous, but if it's a one word banner that gets us to move to stop this shit, then I'm here
Yeah.
for calling it a banana split if that's what it is.
Whatever we have to
You
do,
know what I mean?
exactly.
Like whatever the fuck is going to get us to like instigate action and be a catalyst for
And
sustained action as a solution, then let's find the words and use that shit, whatever
and that's
it
what
is.
drives me too, Carmen, because sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
am, as someone, I've been playing with this
Mm-hmm.
podcast and speaking more about things publicly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you look, they're gonna have Benjamin Netanyahu speak in Congress in about a month, or exactly 1 month, on
Yeah,
the
on the 20,
24th,
is it the 24th, 26th? Oh
20
yeah,
twenty
uh-huh.
fourth of July. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just as you're saying, putting action, they do these terrible things, and then they have to perform normal. They have to
Mm-hmm.
perform. They have to act as though they are just conducting typical, diplomatic business here and there.
Oh yeah,
And
no, they gaslighting the fuck
it's
out of us, but go
massive
ahead.
gaslighting. But
Mm-hmm.
it's the power of that. It's the power of stepping into this truth that they intend to create,
Mm-hmm.
which is a truth that Palestinian lives don't matter, which is that, none of your political goals don't matter. We're just gonna do our thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't even allow it to be called a truth. I would call it a reality.
The
They're
reality that they're
creating
creating. Yeah,
a reality. They want us to agree upon this reality. That's what
exactly.
all this is. Any agreement, anything that's been perpetuated is because they got people in mass to agree with it, and we will move on. From money to words to laws to style and fashions, because you got enough people to agree with it. And right now, they don't have enough people to agree with it. Eventually, it's going to have to collapse. I don't know what it looks like, but it's just inevitable.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
inevitable. You
It's too
cannot have
much.
that level of tectonic shifts in consciousness in the world with technology, with the way that it's going,
Yeah,
that we are so connected. There's literally no excuse. If you choosing to say, I don't know now, that is willful ignorance.
truly
It's
is.
willful ignorance. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? So, like, they're not creating a truth, they're projecting a reality they want us to buy into. So we make the words into bricks and
exactly,
mortar and
exactly.
steel and money.
Exactly. And it's our job to
I mean,
resist. It's our job to use different
absolutely.
words. It's our job
Absolutely.
to use appropriate, accurate words, and
And
to
to make
affirm
a
the reality.
positive disturbance in the
Yeah.
places you've been given. As divine beings, we can shift this reality.
Get it.
And we do in mass. We just got to be on frequency
Yeah.
and have like part of it is that, and I talk about this in one of the cosmic hype because we have conversations also in the last three episodes with some really dope people. But we talk about like the power of the imagination. Like we also have to just imagine something different together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're working, we're fighting to stop what we're seeing and to put a halt to this, on and so forth. But what are we fighting for?
Yeah.
What's going to be on the aftermath, right? Because what we're seeing are seeds that have been given fruit. Like these aren't the seeds of genocide. This is the fruit of genocide, right? This is the fruit of famine. This is the fruit of it. It didn't happen overnight and we didn't pick it off a tree. It
Yeah.
took time and it was conducive to it, right? So what can we do? What are the seeds that we need to plant? What are the actions that we need to do so we and our children, our grandchildren, and the planet, because the planet is suffering, can
Yes.
benefit the fruit of us being committed to excellent effort to be compassionate, to be loved, to be joyful, to be abundant, to be peaceful, to be goofy, to get all the
Yeah.
high
All of
vibe
it.
stuff. We have
Yeah.
to intentionally do it right now. Remember we talked about
Too.
acting like the vision's already here
Exactly.
way back when I was talking about being a dean. When do we start acting joyful? When do we start acting and experiencing peace? Do we got to wait on it? That's some good Christianity for you. Go through hell right now, wait for heaven later.
That's right.
Like the fuck?
It's
Like,
a distraction. It's a twist, you know. But people don't. It's hard to get people to wrap around that. You know, I've been finding
mm,
with my you talked about your walk. I think for me, I've been put in a position. I've had certain experiences. I've been in certain rooms where I have to engage on questions of journalism. I have to
mm,
engage on questions of truth seeking and truth telling, and like try to put that on the table that it's important that we're not like, for instance, being a journalist is not simply having a job at a magazine or a news
mm,
station. It is about
mm,
trying to
mm,
observe and then articulate truth. that's
mm,
that's what it is. That's what it has to be. Anything beyond that
mm,
is entertainment. And to be
mm,
serious about how we structure our sentences then, and what does it
mm,
mean, why are we communicating, because we now all have, I mean, there was a time if you were a startup newspaper, it was a dream for you to reach 2,000 people with your little newspaper, yeah. Now
mm,
we can reach that easily, right? and
mm,
and so that power comes with the responsibility, comes with
mm.
um something that I don't think we haven't reached full awareness on, whatever full awareness. So I think that we have room to continue to grow our awareness and to step into a better use of our words and how we communicate with each other, how we communicate truth with each other.
Yeah, I think for sure. And I don't really, I should know. I guess it's Generation Alpha, who's right before them, Z, whomever. These children, sorry, let me not say children. These young social media warriors who are disseminating truth,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right, are making all the truth givers and sayers, they're getting checked right now,
Yeah,
right? Because
absolutely.
like they're like, we don't trust you now. We absolutely don't trust
There's
you
no
because we're
reason to
getting the
trust them.
very unfiltered, uncensored, unpropagated information and truth. And it's like the camera, our cell phones are the best journalists right now because it's first person, that's then been spread virally around the world. And so there's a reckoning of accountability that's
Yes.
happening now that is unmistakable. So they can
Yes.
do all this stuff, and you literally can have duets where it could be like one of these major outlets, and it's just like facts right beside it. Like
Yeah, exactly.
that's not even mathing, you
Exactly.
know.
But even so, facts is one thing, right? So one of the things that coming from this
Mm-hmm,
space again, they're very big on facts, and so facts is one thing. Being fact check is important, but what we're touching on, what you're talking about, sometimes I
mm-hmm,
think stories need more than just facts, and this is where I'm trying to I'm actually working on trying
mm-hmm,
to talk about this to get a full story about any subject. It's not simply I could say person X slapped person Y. There's questions of intent that are involved. There's questions, obviously, there's like what happened before the event. There's I I'm just spitballing with you here,
uh,
but we need to
uh,
the way we talk about events in journalism, the way we have to understand that framing is everything, right? And I think that
mm-hmm,
going back to labels again, there's this thing that occurs in the world,
mm-hmm,
and let's say October 7th, right? If I want to,
mm-hmm,
I can tell a story that starts at October 7th, and I can tell you that that is the story, and then you will get a
mm-hmm,
sense of the world of that. If you trust me, you'll take that away. And obviously there's it's all connected. We have to tell
mm-hmm.
stories that take the effort to put things in the nests of what they stand upon.
Yeah, we've gotten what I'm also hearing from you, a cosign, is that we are in an age and have been for probably since for real, the internet really gave it to us, or just general media. We've always lived in clickbait history. right, soundbite history where you only get the flashpoints, you only get this one thing without all the entire context and the holistic elements, the preface, the intro and the outro. You don't get the entire
It's about
360
speed.
that makes an entire. It's about speed, consumption, and turnover. Speed,
Yep.
it sounds like capitalism, huh?
Yep.
You have a
Yep.
lot of different things, and so like even our storytelling of the facts and the history and disseminating that information from the people reflects that same kind of productivity, that same kind of click sensation to get this, so on and so forth. It's not driven for the sake of truth, of like being the keepers of stories. Like
Yes.
journalists are scribes, right?
Yes.
Media are scribes of time. There's not that same. No, I don't want to say that. There's been more attention, resources, and power given to entities that don't hold that as a solemn and sacred
Correct.
responsibility.
Correct. They figured out the financing. They're making lots of money, but
Hmm.
they haven't. They're literally zero guardrails on truth. They you know
But I also want to say those media outlets, there are plenty of people who are
absolutely.
journalists who are doing the truth, who are the actual true keepers of the stories and the information, the holistic timeline and all the different dimensions as much as possible that we can capture with the tools that we have. I don't want to ever discredit those who are
Yeah,
keepers of the light guardians of the stories and our truth.
that's so key. This whole era, this technological period we're in is entirely
Hmm.
unique. We've never had it before, and yeah,
Hmm.
we have this opportunity for, call it citizen journalism. I don't know. I think we can even
Yeah.
get deeper than that. But part of it too is like it's not for money. Like to get on social media and to not
Hmm.
necessarily be motivated by saying the thing to get the advertisers. I think there's something about that. That's part of what is this intention. You
Hmm.
we How do you measure it? It's very hard, but if it's
Hmm.
there and it shows up in that product. If the goal
Hmm.
is that, then you'll get some. But if the goal is to give you a genuine, I'm trying to share reality with you from love,
Hmm. Hmm.
then we have an ecosystem of journalism and of truth
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
is deeply powerful and
Hmm.
transformative.
Absolutely. And it's necessary. That's, yep, critical. And when chat, 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 GPT and AI and all that other stuff started popping off, I was like, that's the unfortunate evolution of technology. And I recognize there are probably some great benefits, but as soon as I saw that they could just like mock people's voices and their words and create spaces and places and times, and they're getting better and better at it, and the whole the whole premise of it in a lot of ways is for the AI to learn us even better so they can create an even better product, right?
Yeah,
Than what we could
yeah,
quote unquote imagine.
right.
You now have the ability for something else to
That's
create
sick.
your imagined space. Like that is scary
To create
to
your
me
imagined space.
because then we're also receiving the algorithms that are teach, you know what I mean? So we're teaching each other,
Right,
but they are learning us a lot better than we're learning it.
for sure. We're
And
not
that's the thing that's
intentional.
really,
They're intentional.
we want that ease, right? They're intentional and at a
It's
faster
not about
speed.
us. We're receiving a great deal. They are yeah, they're moving with intention to make money for sure. I think that this whole AI thing, it's speeding up something. So I'm trying to looking at the potential good here. It's speeding up
Hmm.
this what will have to be the boomerang where people are intent need truths. People will want human.
Hmm.
They will want something human.
Hmm.
These AI, these
Hmm.
chat things are interesting, but they're
Hmm.
massive aggregators. They're saying,
Hmm.
they based on numbers, they can assume what the next word should be to sound more human, but they mess it up still
Hmm.
fairly often. They'll get better,
Hmm.
but what is human? What is art that is human? What is a
Yeah.
thought that is human? That isn't just a
Hmm.
compilation of words, but was a new
Hmm.
spark that was an
Hmm.
inspiration and innovation. That's what
Hmm.
humans
Hmm.
do. And the AI,
Hmm.
I don't think in its current, I don't see it doing it. Can't
Hmm.
do it at this point.
Hmm. 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 Very true. There's something about it what we were saying before, like how we got the calluses on our hands makes the story when we give it to people, something that
Yes.
connects to souls, right? There's something about lived, breathing, crying, laughing,
Yeah.
eating shit and fucking experience,
Yes.
that
Totally.
a computer is not going to be able to get from an algorithm.
No.
And like there are certain things I believe that we share in common as humans, experiences of sorrow and joy that helps us to connect. I feel like somehow or another you've probably dealt with one part of that, either sorrow, joy, or both. If we're
Both.
blessed to have such an experience, right? But that also means that there's no opting out of being connected, right? Because if we are able to understand and see the sorrow that we share, that means that we will be able to carry it together, and the sorrow becomes less bitter and more bearable. And joy can be amplified and magnified and given in abundance, right?
Right.
So I don't see a computer doing that at a barbecue or in a grief circle
Mm-hmm.
or picking up trash at the watershed, the local watershed or whatever it is. There's certain things of living human experience, you're right, that I think will always be safeguarded
Yeah,
because of the human experience.
I agree. I agree. It's something unique and special. The language
Hmm.
is rare. We talked a bit about God and the
Hmm.
spirit and all these things.
Hmm.
These are things that the computers can't tap into, I don't believe. Um
Hmm.
so how did you grew up Georgia?
Georgia,
How
born and raised.
how did you come to be the person that you know, the person that we see before you? Were you raised? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I was raised in a small rural town, about an hour and a half northwest of Atlanta called Cartersville, Georgia. And I like to say that I'm a recovering Southern Baptist, not like
Mm,
Southern Baptist Convention, but Baptist in the South.
mm-hmm.
Um, and grew up with two parents who went to church and loved the Lord. My mom was and still is a very much a religious woman, lives and breathes as a scholar of the word. And she is a prayer warrior, a faith warrior, and the sort. And it's pretty interesting because if you've met and interacted with me, then you've met and interacted with my mom on so many different levels.
Yeah.
We are one, and we are also very opposite in a
Mm-hmm.
number of ways. And I'll talk about that a little bit later if we get into it. And so I grew up going to church Sundays, Wednesdays, so on and so forth, did all the things. And my mom is actually a midwife. And so midwives in any town will have the secrets of the town. She never told anybody secrets, but she would kind of allude to certain things, right? And so like
Mm,
there's this church that used to have these white crosses they would put on the lawn and represent X number of babies that were aborted that year in Georgia or something else like that. And every time we drove past it, my mom was like, bunch of hypocrites,
mm.
whole bunch of them having 3 and 4 like they condoms and contraceptives, and like she would go off because of the hypocrisy. And so like I always had that, huh,
Yeah.
church, and there could be a hypocrisy, but what is that? And so I had a number, and I've always been hip, I've always been a seer, I've always asked questions and wondered, and like I appreciate that my mother also taught me to have a voice in a lot of ways, but that also caused a lot of trouble in a number of
Of
ways.
course.
And
You're
so I
troublemaker.
knew, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And it's wild because I also had like great grades. I didn't get in trouble, but I had a mouth and I
Mm-hmm.
still do.
Still do.
Right. So it opens doors, but it can also get you a couple of eyebrow raises. And
Yeah.
so I knew pretty early on that I was queer. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was sinful. I knew it was bad. I knew that was an abomination. So I did a whole bunch of hiding in the church and in church clubs and went to like retreat weekends and all this other stuff. Little did they know that's where I got my first two girlfriends.
There we go.
But listen, I'm not, that's another story. But
Yeah.
so I did the whole church thing and everything else like that, and went to undergrad, and I faked the funk as much as possible, but still dated on the down low and all this other stuff
Mm.
with some women and things. And I was just like really torn in a lot of ways. And when I had the opportunity to move from Georgia to DC to teach, I knew that that was my opportunity to be a new person, be a new place. Like I could define who I was. I had a job and had an apartment. I was good to go. I had to who was I depending on? No
Yeah.
one but me and the Lord, right? And so throughout that time, I always had, like I was saying, my constant, who was my oldest brother, who always loved on me and saw me and like never judged me and allowed me to do what I needed to do and everything else like that. And so we just continually were getting closer and closer. And he's just my soulmate, my best friend, to the point where I feel I'm not exaggerating when I say this, Billy. We probably had 4 or 5 arguments in the span of our lifetime together. Like we just didn't have to. When he would speak or say something, there would be no reason for me to question it because he always had my best intention. He was very calm.
What's the
He
age
got along with
difference?
everybody. 5 years.
5 years. Okay.
So he basically raised me in a lot of ways, particularly after my parents got divorced. I had a lot of just anger towards the church because there's a lot of malpractice that happened in the pulpit at so many different churches and the thing that I just completely, it was weird because I knew love and I knew God's love, but I knew God was, at least at that time, Lord, I'm using this to explain. God was a bastard. Like how dare you do so much of this stuff? You supposed to be loving, but people are dying of cancer. My
Right.
parents are divorced. I'm queer, but I'm an abomination. Like I had this whole Rolodex of I can't stand this cat at all. Oh, we call
Mm-hmm.
you father. I can't stand my daddy. I'm not sure if you want me to call you father or not. Right. So that's sitting over here. But then I have this experience of true unconditional love and now also able to move to a different place,
Through your brother.
Washington,
It's
D.C.
unconditional
Yeah.
love. Okay.
Because that unconditional love piece. And so I came to DC and just was, my whole consciousness was just expanded in a lot of ways. And like one of the first, and I kid you not, one of the first invitations to consider something different was watching Avatar, The Last Airbender. I was like, wait, this shit makes sense.
Avatar did it,
Chakras.
huh? Uh-huh.
I was like, wait a minute. And so I started looking at stuff and I was like, wait a minute, okay. And so my brother was going through his kind of like spiritual awakening and shift to science of mind and metaphysics as well. So I would, when I would come back home, I would go to like his truth center with them. They don't necessarily use the word church because that's also an inflamed word, but it was in a church building.
Okay.
So I would go with them and like hear a lot of things. I'm like, okay, this is a thing. So boom, my brother died of cancer. Right. And so before that, and he was 35 at that time, we
Mm-hmm.
did everything we were supposed to. We prayed, we laid hands, we tithed, we did oils, we did homeopathic, so on and so forth. And this, when I say is a solid human being, as close to doggone perfect as I could get as far as the disposition of a human being, like being the best human possible, died. And I had at least 15 assholes that could have gone in his place that if God would have consulted with me, I would have just slid him a death note.
That's right.
But
Hello.
but that didn't happen. I was not
He
consulted,
didn't
but
consult
that
with
gave
you.
me at all. And I tried, I pleaded, wanted to trade places even. I was one of those assholes on the list, to be quite frank, right?
Well,
And so
I don't know about that.
we listen, that's where I was. There's nothing like if you've ever had to pray for somebody to stay alive, at one point you bargain. You know what I mean? And sometimes I don't know if anybody's ever taken God taken up on it, but I tried. But anyhow, so I was left with either scriptures were a lie, God didn't care, my understanding was completely and totally off. And only one of those I felt like I actually had control over, so I went into my understanding and I started to wonder and I started to read and I started to study and like have conversations and be open. And I said, well, if I were to remove hell off the table, who would I be and what would I believe? There is no hell. Like that's just fabricated. What kind of life and experience and spiritual, oh, what would spirit feel like? And I was like, yep, that makes sense. Because I never heard anybody come back for heaven or from heaven or hell. So I'm not even sure if that's really real, but I am living this experience
Yeah.
and this can be either heaven or hell. So I'm gonna work on this experience again. What do I have control over? I can't control the book that was given to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if God is as big as y'all say, I can't control God. So it's got to be me and what I have control over. And so that's what kind of
That's
led me
awesome.
into this path.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And sorry about your brother again. You told me about him.
Hmm.
Before, and the love that you have for him is clear.
Hmm.
And yeah, what an
Hmm.
interesting pivotal life moment to have someone so beautiful taken at such a young
Hmm.
age,
Hmm.
senselessly, seemingly senselessly. Um,
Hmm.
one of the things that touched me, like you said, several things that touched me there, but one of them had to do with being a new person, right? When
Hmm.
you go to DC, you were to a new person. And as an older brother, I remember when my brothers were going from like elementary school to middle school and to middle school to middle high school. I remember telling them like, "Yo, you're a new person. When you go to this new school, no one knows anything
Hmm. Hmm.
about whatever. You have these inflection points that we look at and we realize that we have this opportunity to be a new person. But and I know you agree with me on this, right? that opportunity is kind of always there, right?
Always there.
You are always given the opportunity to be a new person. You are always
Absolutely.
a new person, whether or not you
Mm-hmm.
think about it. I don't know the facts on this, but from what I understand, like the cells on our skin, the cells like
Mm-hmm.
shed, and we don't appreciate it, we don't experience it because it doesn't happen in
Mm-hmm.
a single moment. But that
Mm-hmm.
all of this stuff is way less like solid than we think. You know, the notions of
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. Um, I just think that's a super powerful principle and a truth to like step into and acknowledge.
It's true. It truly is. And like, as you were saying that, what came was that a new life is in the invitation of every choice.
Mm. Hmm. It is, yeah. In ways that we
Every
can't.
single one of them.
The ripples, the subtlety of it. It's just it's like you said with the plant. You know, our awareness. I talk about measurement in another episode.
Mm-hmm.
This measurement that we do, we feel that we all measurements are made up. Feet, yards, and
Mm-hmm.
centimeters, and weights, and all
Yeah.
that. They're helpful. They help us.
Yeah.
They help
Yeah.
us anchor ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
tell interesting stories and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But they aren't real, and most of them, particularly as it relates to our conception of who we are as we measure ourselves as mirrors and contrasting against other things we see, especially social media.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta let that go. You gotta accept the self beyond
Mm-hmm.
words. Don't
Mm-hmm.
don't, because you don't even know some of the, you've attached all these things with these words, and now you're performing that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what a beautiful invitation that is always available to us in the present.
Always. Yeah, I think these like critical points in our life just is a sharp and jarring wake up. Pay attention. But the invitation's always there. It's like, no, like right now?
No,
No, I'm talking about
now.
now. That's
Yeah,
where a lot of those, but it's always like, hey, hey, right
yeah.
now? Want to do something different? Want a different reality? Hey, what you believe in
What you
now? Like,
want?
want a different choice? And then it's sometimes where it's like, yo,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, what are we gonna do with the hello, right on,
But if
and the
you're,
yos?
again, if you never get that story, you get those feelings of those invitations, let's say, you connected it to
Mm-hmm.
fear. You talked about fear earlier. You
Mm-hmm.
get this invitation, this feeling, and you know that the answer is to run away from it. The answer is to scurry
Mm-hmm.
back to what is familiar. That there you don't
Mm-hmm.
we aren't taught that there is this like whole bounty available in that room that they told you was full of
Mm-hmm.
snakes. In fact, no,
Mm-hmm.
it's an interesting test, and when you get out of it, you'll
Mm-hmm.
have this other
Yeah,
experience.
absolutely. And I think it comes down to like, so, and I've asked folks this when they've asked me to hold space with them. Like, so either at this point, if you're able to articulate what you're going through and experiencing, and you can see what it is, you're either choosing to stay in it or you're choosing to leave it. But what you allow, you encourage.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and the thing, and I recognize like there's so much power in being able to see something or have an example or having a human. And I also believe there are a number of people who have never had a quote unquote example who decided, I'm just going to do something different because I hated this fucking experience.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm going to actually be a dope dad because I had a terrible one. I never had any, adult that was life affirming. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do the healing, even if I don't want to, because
right.
I just want a different experience. And that's also extremely valid without, saying that you had to have a story, because there are so many people who have like just again made a new choice and a new birth of themselves because they were like, I'm not doing this anymore. This isn't serving me. Why am I
Exactly.
still doing it?
And to talk, like you mentioned, of being a great dad because you didn't have one. Like, so even that, right? To always be present again, because even your definition of what that means to be a dope dad,
Hmm.
it could mean, because you, in your mind, you have a wound where there was lacking gifts or
Hmm.
material things. So you're like, I'm gonna make sure my son has,
Hmm.
it never wants for material things, right? But
Hmm.
that would be a reaction to something, and there's
Hmm.
always a requirement to come back to center, where a good dad will,
Hmm.
has to be more than that, right? Children need something
Hmm.
more than the material. Sometimes the lack of having things is a good thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, the pendulum's going to swing if you never had a prototype.
Right, exactly. And
You
to
know what I mean?
allow
Like
that
it.
pendulum.
all of it, yeah, and like all of it for me, all of it is practice. Until we're dead, that's the deadline. So it's all practice. Like there's constantly getting feedback, like, okay, that data told me I need to shift, or I need to
Yeah.
pivot, or I need to release, or I need to put pressure, or I need to sit. Like it's we're constantly calibrating,
Yes.
right? We're calibrating, but we have the opportunity to set course too and be very intentional.
And
And as
imaginative.
we're on that course, we could just and imaginative and yeah, and give ourselves the opportunity to imagine, right?
Mhm.
Based on a whole bunch of different things too. Word.
That's so deep.
Mm-hmm.
That's so, I just
Mm-hmm.
and I'm still coming to grips with it. I'm still able to find language around it, but again, I'm constantly encouraged by the possibility of like getting younger people this kind of awareness sooner, and
Absolutely.
and even older people. I don't know, but it does seem like age. It's harder. It can be harder to
Mm-hmm.
the attachments are stronger. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but with that concept of being a new person, tell me about JD Thickums.
Oh, Trey D. Thickums.
Trady
Yeah, yeah,
Thickums.
yeah. That's Trey D. Thickums. Nice and thick with it.
Yeah.
Right. That's my drag persona. That's another part of me. My I mean, it is Trey D. Thickum is a part of me, and so
Yeah.
that's my drag persona. I guess you could say. If Trey had a style, there isn't really. You're gonna have fun. It's gonna be interactive. I'm a be with you for sure. It could be whoever I'm really feeling at the time. It could be the context of the time.
That's
It could
what's
be the
up.
show. Yeah. Mhm.
I bring it up because I intend to see your next show when I know you took a break, it seems, but when
Yeah, yeah.
when we get it back, Sheba's getting back into some comedy. I want to see Trinity
Hmm.
Thickums on stage,
Absolutely.
and I just really appreciate. I've had you now for like an hour and 20 minutes, so
Mm,
um, I guess I want to affirm the God that I see in you, Rev Carmen Player, that I met many months ago through a friend, and within minutes we were getting into a political conversation and emotion and like emotional, kind of spiritual conversations.
hmm
It was very powerful at the time, and I knew I needed to have this
hmm
conversation. I'm glad we did. I think we covered a lot of ground here. Um,
Absolutely.
if you could, you know, any final things you'd like to say before I let you go?
Absolutely. Well, again, I want to extend my gratitude as well. Thank you, God, for spending time with me too, Billy, the divine that you are. And I'm so grateful for the Holy Host that ensured the Holy Host seen and unseen, because right on sack, that made sure that we were together and that we connected and that I believe that we're in community and light guardians together doing this work. Um, I think the most important thing that I would want to gift to folks as the final interruption, offering an invitation, is to know that you are whole, you are holy, you are worthy, and you are loved. No matter what you've gone through or even the things that you've done, there's nothing that can actually change or touch the divinity that you are. You deserve life affirming experiences. You deserve abundance and peace and softness and love. You are worthy, you are whole, and you are 100% loved. So if you ever need that affirmation or to hear that, to interrupt it, let me be here to do that. And also
Beautiful.
check out the Cosmic Hype podcast on all your streaming networks and,
Check
and
out the
platforms.
Cosmic Hype
Hmm.
podcast for that kind of
Yeah,
affirming love and knowledge
absolutely.
and conversation, yo. So, yo, I
Hmm.
appreciate it. I'll see you soon, Carmen.
Absolutely. You
All
take care,
right,
Billy.
take it
Give
easy.
Shiva my love.
I will. Thank you, to Elias
Right on.
Amuna.
I will. I will. You take care. Peace.
Peace.
Uh huh. Last things first, you already win. You already him. You don't gotta pretend. Fuck them. You already king. You stay real. You confident in your skin. It's all now. Sit in the power that you already in. This the story of a master from a true Bedouin, far away from home than few ever been. First round pick, league of the smooth gentleman. The game rigged like 50 said it's a cruel sentiment. I'm from the era when lyrics and bars is over everything. 5-star veteran. You couldn't walk in my fucking shoes or carry them. Excuse my borderline is very thin. Married to the game like ever since maybe 2010. I realized most of y'all not serious. Point blank period. I flex and twist necks like cherry stems. Thought he was buried, but there he is, a new narrative.
I
keep winning.
They not used to what you bringing, kid.
I keep winning.
They don't even know what they looking at.
I
for
keep
real,
winning.
Man, yo, pick one lane and stay in that
I
shit.
keep winning.
You came up on that hood shit.
I
my
keep
nigga, you
winning.
know, nobody seeing your vision for real.
I keep
man.
winning.
Even your friends don't fuck with you.
I keep
nigga.
winning.
Be ready for your turn.
So
though,
here's your
G.
one shot right now. Your heart pounding. Clear throat right when the crowd pipe down. It's kinda like time froze on ice now. Damn, stomach tight round, flipped upside down. Try to speak, but the words and the thought took flight now. Sweaty, but can't pause or to wipe down. You pray for the day you flow with a hype crowd. Now they hanging on your every word and slight sound. Maybe these critics is wrong, maybe you twice as strong. What if every fear and doubt was gone? I'm up first, bright from dawn, like fuck it, we yawn. I squeeze life, pythons bite when the mic's on. Peace, I might respawn. I hook left with the right arm, living in 5-star, ring the alarm. My full nature is still greater, I'm twice born. But never the ball, that's the fucking level I'm on.
Talk to these people, man.
Picture me lost, I'm differently raw. Been through the muck, most y'all instantly barf. Now I'm strictly the boss, drippy, hood hippie couture. Feeding these bitches till it's ripping they jaw. But y'all fans of the bullshit, me flicking it off. I damage your whole clique, these clowns really pissing me off. My verse is heat, and scripted is law. Like, bitch, you fucking know who you singing across, huh?
Okay, you got their attention now,
I
bro.
keep winning.
You just gotta keep showing them what it is,
I
man.
keep winning.
Your shit different for real, though.
I
man.
keep winning.
Yo, stay away from the politics,
I
though,
keep
my
winning.
dude. They still not getting the message, kid.
I keep winning.
They still don't understand where you coming from.
I keep winning.
But make sure you secure the fucking
I
ground,
keep
man.
winning.
I see the growth,
Yo,
keep going.
I'm through playing it low key. Don't sleep. My power levels are OP. I'm floating, the mask
It
off.
is what it is.
Crew run deep, bigger than Sasquatch. We that large, the last gladiator. Blast off. It's either love or give me respect, that's all. Killing these niggas like, yeah, this what you asked for. Black Panther spit flames from Asgard. The whole squadron click transform. Fuck around, find out. Here's a crash course. We all time past now and fast forward. And we keep winning.
Yo, that's crazy, man. Yo, you did that, man. Yo, real talk, man. You can really rap, bro. Real